I'm doing great. How's everyone doing?
Your, beard, this one? Just cut it up?
First item, Brian, your beard.
This one.
It's growing on me.
I love it. Who wants to go first? Who wants to start the discussion first?
That's right.
There's Mr. Bobby Beard. He's ready to talk.
Oh, you ready to talk? Come on up, Bobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Well,
Right today.
but you're busy. You gotta get back.
Patty Sunday, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Everyone's always shy to start out with, and we can never end the meeting. Bobby, we got chicken biscuits over here and donuts.
Good morning.
If you need some sugar too.
I need sugar and donuts.
Yeah.
Where's your Dunkin' Donuts? Good morning, Bob. Good. How would we say our address and all
No,
that
just
stuff?
name.
Oh, okay. I say my name? Okay, I didn't know I was to
Just
say
so we
your
know.
name.
I mean, we know who you are.
Yeah, just so they know who they're talking to, that's all.
Okay,
We might not know
Patty
you,
Sunday. Alan, thank you for the email on the coaching. I followed through on what you said, and it's a typical dynamic. I've just seen this for years where people have vision and they do not have access to capital, or they do not qualify because of where they are probably in their life story, carrying a lot of personal debt and things. Good morning. And when I introduced them to private capital partners and some of the projects, and these are Glenwood potential projects, when we pull out all the fixed costs, there's just not enough margin for the private capital partner to want to park that money. So first of all, thank you. I followed through on that. I haven't had any success yet. The second item I have is I was thinking about, and maybe you already have this report, of by ward, if we made each ward a business, I'm not, on paper, this is for thinking, right? If we made each ward a business and we looked at the taxes that are collected per ward versus the expenses that we spend in that ward, with another column of things that need to be spent, like infrastructure, I wondered if y'all, coming into the budget, good morning, Josh, coming into the budget workshop, because that's what made me think of you, Josh, with the budget workshop, it might be a different way and create a little different thinking of what our needs are and how the pie chart is spent proportionally. And I have a question, does the shipbuilding taxes go against the Millville, your ward, Commissioner Robbie? In other words, in the olden
Millville's
days,
split between
Yeah.
Ward 1
yeah,
and Ward 2.
but the revenues from the shipbuilding, because I remember in the olden
Would be
days,
Ward 1.
we all kind of
That would
panicked.
be Ward 1.
Yeah, when the Bay Hospital turned into Ascension, and remember that was going into CRA at the time, we gasped from a planning perspective because that was one of the strong revenues for Glenwood, and obviously that no longer exists. And so I know these are facts that everybody knows, but I wondered with all of the Excel spreadsheets and pie charts and financial analysis, it would be interesting to look at that just to help us think better, think differently, and then from a funding and grant perspective, that data also might tell another dimension of a story for the need and thus earn more points. Thank you all for coming on Mardi Gras Day.
Awesome, thank you. There's actually a consultancy, I forgot, there's a J3 or something that does property tax density studies showing where, people often assume it's the big fancy houses that create all the tax density, but it's actually the neighborhoods that are tight, that have a density, and that's usually historic districts or new urbanism developments. And you lose money on your big urban sprawl areas.
What's that company?
I can't remember, I was looking, I want to say J3, but I know
Property density?
they're on Strong Towns all the time.
Oh, I got the Strong Towns housing book. It came in this week.
Yeah, there we go. It's awesome stuff. There's chicken biscuits over there in the corner and donuts. Any other discussion items related to her comments? No? Anyone else? Next person up. Who wants to go next? Don't be shy. Yes, sir.
You get my address?
No, just your name, so we know who you are. We've heard you speak before.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just heard us say about the Bay Medical Center, ERA, and Bay Medical Center. I think it's already in the ERA because I stayed I stay between 98 and 7th Street, everything on the north side of 7th. It's supposed to be an ERA.
North side of,
That's what I understood. So I could be wrong, but you can correct me. But I was hearing y'all in the meeting, last meeting, talking about the sewer, the meters, the water meters, and everything. And I don't believe that y'all don't realize, or y'all don't want to realize or see what the water and what they're doing. And folks are paying for water, paying sewer bill on water that they put in the ground, or water that they put on their cars, water that they fly their wife water flowers with.
Urban 3.
That water do not go into the sewer system. Y'all get money. I don't know why y'all cannot say y'all not. You got a problem with the water. You're getting water. Folk that do not have an irrigation meter is paying sewer on water that they put on flowers, they put on their cars. I don't know if y'all realize that. You don't want to. You're making money. I don't know why you're not making money. Because every time they turn on the faucet outside, it's not going into the system. I don't know how y'all measuring it. Call yourself measuring it. The water usage for the sewer that you're servicing, that you're putting into the bay, or sending to Timberfield. I don't know how y'all register. Coming up with these things that make us pay more money in these things. Now, we need to, I know y'all don't want folks to know this, but I have many of y'all tell me you go call me about things that I ask you about, never receive a call from you. Never say, never hear what's going on, even about this building on 98. Don't hear a word about it. Nobody knows nothing about it, but it sits there.
Thank
So,
you.
I just want to know what's going on.
What's going on?
I mean, yes, if you have a potable water meter, you pay sewer on everything that goes through there. That's why if you have a lot of needs, watering your lawn or wanting to wash your car, we would encourage you to get an irrigation meter or put a well in your house. That's pretty standard across all municipalities across the world, it's my understanding.
So one of the things that I've gotten asked this question a lot over the years, and if you think about it logically, it's very easy to measure water as it comes in, but trying to measure the gallons of sewer that leave your house, you could imagine what kind of device it would take to actually do that.
Right.
It would end up, in a really, it wouldn't work very often. So what we do measure is we measure the gallons at our wastewater treatment plant after everything is treated. And it's not just household sewer or commercial sewer that we treat. We also treat I&I, which is the infiltration of stormwater into the sewer system, which is what we've been very focused on. So on those issues, we don't receive any revenue from anything that we treat that's infiltrating the system from rainwater or stormwater or those things, but we still have to absorb those costs at the plant as well. So, there's really no way, and there's no. If somebody's got a device that they've invented that can measure the quantity of sewer that lives someone's house, I have not seen it, and I don't think there's any municipality or government in the nation that actually has the ability to do that. And if you think about it, it makes sense why. So.
Anyone else?
Can we have other people speak first?
Before the people come up multiple times, is there anyone else who wants to speak next? And then we can come back to you.
Yeah.
And that way it doesn't turn into a one-off conversation. Yes, sir. Come on up, Dr. Wood. We also need to get the building, the shed, and it's not a shed.
Okay.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning, Rufus Wood Jr. Mr. Mayor and to the commissioners, I wanted to bring an issue up that's very concerning to me. I know that you all are public servants, and I understand about serving because I've been in ministry for 45 years. So I serve as a pastor, I serve as the president for NAACP here, and also we advocate on behalf of people. I came to you all, I believe it was November, if memory serves me correctly. I think it's the same day that we had celebration of life for the late Mr. Ivy Birch. I believe that was the day I came here. Mr. David James is a citizen, upright citizen. He's been here for a long, long time. He was an outstanding husband, father, grandfather, deacon of his church. He's worked in this community. I brought the issue to you all because he came to my house the day before I came to the meeting about property next to him. Whoever owns that property, they have not taken care of it. Property has been grown up. This issue has been going on for better than 2 years. If memory serves me correctly, he said he spoke with Mr. McQueen about it prior to Mr. Hayes. When I came that day, Mr. Hayes was supposed to get with him and I guess with code enforcement. Now, he was told that it would be taken care of and by January, the issue would be rectified. If the city had to do it, then they would deal with the property owner. That has not been done. This is February. And I'm kind of at the point to say enough is enough. I don't know who needs to be held accountable, whether it's Mr. Hayes or the people from code enforcement, but I think 2 years and nothing has been done. We got a problem, and I would hope that you all would address that and not just say that we're going to do something. I think at this point, I would like to see something done. I think Mr. James has spoken to Commissioner Lucas. He's met with her. So at this point, something needs to be done. I know I would not be happy. Mr. James is not here today because he's ill. He's not able to be here. So I'm here advocating on behalf of he and his family. So if y'all could help me, I would appreciate, and I would hope that you all would hold somebody accountable to make sure that this is rectified. I just think it's inexcusable for something to have gone on for 2 years. I don't like to be negative. I believe in positive affirmation, but I'm at the point with this situation, enough is enough. So I would ask you, Mr. Mayor, respectfully, and commissioners, if y'all would make sure that this is taken care of immediately.
Can I get the address on that, or road, Mr.?
It's Louisiana Avenue. We looked at it.
1113 Louisiana Avenue, and you should have it. Like I said, I came
Yep.
here back in November, so.
So just, Mayor Commissioners, as you know, we get a complaint, we go out, we investigate. It's not gonna be something ever that the city's gonna be like, hey, you've got like 10 days to fix this, or we're gonna come in and do it. There's a process with magistrate, and so I will absolutely look into where this is in the timeline, but, it sounds like someone made contact with him and promised him January. I don't know what that deadline looks like, but I'll follow up with Mr. Fuller and his team. But again, we try to encourage, it's code compliance. We want to work with those folks, but there will be a point where the city will step in and do it and then, kind of put that financial responsibility on that piece of property. But that's a several month process. That's not a several week process. But I will look
Yeah.
into that, provide an update.
You and I looked at this,
I think I remember it
because right there.
in November maybe, right?
No, earlier than that, when we did our ride around
Okay.
early last year. The corner of 11th and Louisiana, there's and I may have my term wrong, but there's a water ditch there that we
Like a
looked
big
at.
drainage inlet. I remember that.
Then there's Mr. James's house. Then next to that is the lot that we looked at that had everything, including trees growing up and leaning on his fence. And then there was in front of it another drainage area. And I know late last year I sent you a picture saying it's grown back up. So that has gone out to clear the right of way. But that situation with the neighbor next door, I know that was something that was brought to my attention when I first got elected in '23.
If he's unable to get it done, is he willing for us to clean it up? And
Well, the landowner next to him is unresponsive. That's the issue.
Yeah. I do know that we did
Let's clean it up.
our guys did clean up our area, but it was probably towards the end of the growing season, so I have no doubt that it's grown back. So I'll follow up with the team and I'll get the specifics on where we are in the code compliance process at 1113.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The gentleman lives in Gainesville, he's not here.
The landowner,
Say that.
next door, the landowner.
The property, he owns the property, but he doesn't live in Bay County.
Who's next? Don't be shy. Who wants to speak next? Bobby? You go next. Yes, sir. Everyone shows up and they're very shy when they show up.
We wouldn't have to do up and down. We would have the answer while we're standing here. Y'all answer the questions. When you answer the question, and I hear incorrect questions answered. I know you cannot measure the water that comes out the ground that goes into the sewer system. Stormwater ain't got no business going into the sewer system. Y'all don't treat storm sewer water. As far as I know, you don't. Now, you might be made a change, and you do now. But that water, I mean, you cannot. You measure it somehow, figure it out that y'all putting in more money to service this water from the plants than what y'all getting out of the people in the city. And I was just making a point. I heard the city manager say that y'all advise folks. I don't think so. I worked for the city 31 years. Nobody advised folks telling you need to have an irrigation meter where it won't be charged on your water bill. Folks don't know that. Be fair. Be earnest. Put it out, or either send them a letter showing that if they don't have irrigation meter, that they're paying sewer on that water that they're using out of their regular house meter. Now, we'll talk about how y'all go find out how from 1 meter to a house meter to an irrigation meter, what it is. Something got to be wrong. Because most in a new subdivision, they put in a water meter and an irrigation meter. Put a meter box there. Ain't no way you tell me a person, a plumber, will turn around and put a hook to the irrigation side of that irrigation line. If y'all got it, where they know what it is. All they doing is guessing which is which. If you're not letting them know which meter that they're supposed to be hooking to the house, which meter they should be hooking to the irrigation system, other than that, they are not going to know. And why it takes you so long to figure out that these houses is not on the right meter, what you're saying, what I was hearing the last meeting, how can you tell me that? Take too long to do that. Y'all realize that if that house they use the right amount of water, y'all could see that on your computers. If those meters are registered, if those meters are not registered.
Thank
Now,
you.
So we're in the process of going through the entire water system. And that's been one of our challenging areas after Hurricane Michael really devastated our water system. So I know you gave us some numbers that kind of update where we are, and there are some areas that we're working on.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I actually asked Jonathan about irrigation meters the other day at my own house. I was like, I want an irrigation meter. He's like, that'll be $3,500. I'm like, go!
How badly do you want it?
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a lot of
Compare
money.
that to putting a well in, which is like
Yeah,
15,000
totally. And
plus.
so,
No,
you know,
1,500.
to
Yeah.
justify.
Shallow well's $1,500. It's
Yeah.
cheaper to put a well
Yeah.
in than it is to put an irrigation in with us and with a backflow preventer.
Yeah, and
This,
so all
this
this.
close to the bay, I recommend a deep well. That's just me.
And so all those measures are in place for anyone who like can justify the cost of putting a well in or that sort of thing. I think it'd be interesting as we're looking at retail billing for water. You know, we know it was so fat. Charlotte's been awesome, and you can see the hourly billing, and she'll say, "Oh, I know they run 2,000 gallons through their watering their yard on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 a.m." I'm like, "How do you know that?" She's like, "Here it is, right here. You can see the pattern. It's a consistent pattern." And I thought, well, that's interesting. So it'd be cool to get to a place where we have a billing system where it is firing off an email or saying, "Hey, you spend X thousands of dollars per year watering your yard in various ways, or your pool, filling your pool. You could justify the cost of a shallow well or irrigation."
And also say, hey, your average use per day is this, we've seen an uptick.
Yeah,
Are you home?
totally. Yeah, yeah.
Go check the toilet in your guest room.
Yeah, because she can see it. She'll even say like, "Oh, I know there's no leak at the house," because you would see a consistent, 1 a.m. in the morning, the water's still moving. How interesting is that? So I'd love to see us moving to a system that's a little more informative and automatic.
Some of the challenges that you have is with like new construction in an area, say like Sweet Bay, where they don't allow wells, or they don't allow deep wells to my knowledge. And the contractor, goes out there and maybe hooks them up backwards. So you have an irrigation meter and you have a water, they both come off the same water main, okay? But if they reverse it, we don't have any real history. Charlotte doesn't have any history at that house to kind of compare the two, to flag it. So it's only down the road when we realize, whatever reason, your backflow preventer, and people aren't as concerned out. You might lock my backflow preventer in like January and it's only $30 to unlock it. That's fine, whatever, I'll get it inspected in the spring. But then we got there and they lock it and they realized that the plumber or the contractor had reversed them. And then we locked the backflow preventer, and it's actually the meter incorrectly going to the house instead of to that. And that's when we discovered that. Now that's not a lot, that's kind of anecdotal, but it has happened some. And of course a residential home doesn't require a backflow preventer. It's only that irrigation line that would require such a thing. So that's really on the contractor at that point. But we are working to try to find ways to kind of quality control that as well.
What kind of challenges do you see in the older neighborhoods like Millville, where it's not a new subdivision, it's, older homes, and they have those water issues as well?
Well, we don't really see that as much. I think we've talked about this a couple meetings ago where, most of your backflow preventers on irrigation meters are in Ward 3, predominantly in Sweet Bay, because again, correct me if I'm wrong, you aren't allowed to put wells in at Sweet Bay, right?
Yeah. No.
Someone told me that. I don't know if that's true or not, so.
No.
Yeah,
No,
so that's,
not allowed to put wells in.
yeah, so that's,
Oh, well.
yeah. Oh,
Oh,
that's
well.
funny.
It's a deep
So,
subject.
yeah, that's a deep subject. Wow. So, I think, to Commissioner Street's point, in some of the other areas, it's more just the age of the infrastructure, water pressure. And yes, we don't intentionally treat stormwater. Mr. Henry's correct, but Commissioner Street is also correct in the sense that because of the challenges in a lot of our lines, our sewer lines, predominantly the gravity ones leading to all of our lift stations, we do pull in a lot of I&I. And
A great example of that is
Yeah.
Lift Station 16, which is
Yes.
got 2 manholes in the bay. Well, when the tide comes in high enough, guess what we're treating? We're treating bay water.
Yep.
It's going straight up and pumping into the thing. And so these are realities. When first got into office, we had a flooding event that we went from 7 million gallons in treatment almost to over topping the plant. It was like another 4 million gallons. Now that wasn't people flushing their toilet. That was stormwater infiltrating the system. And so it was multiple millions of gallons that we treat, either on a daily, monthly, I don't know what it is basis, but it's getting better as
It
we're
is.
replacing infrastructure.
Where are the two manholes in the bay?
You can see them over by,
they were not in the bay when they were first built, for the record.
no, they weren't, erosion and things like that, over by Lake Huntington.
At the
So-
end of Drummond, right?
Yep.
Kind of
Yeah, right
at the
at
Into
the
Drummond
Yeah,
Avenue.
there's actually a building there as well.
We had a plan to move that lift station. Where are we with
We
that?
are, so that's part of the, we have an HMGP grant, which is Hazard Mitigation Grant Program through FEMA. It includes 11 lift stations. Lift station 16 is one of those. It'll come off the bay and move, like a couple blocks, 2.5 blocks to the north. City purchased a portion of, I guess it'd be kind of the southeast corner of a piece of property of a homeowner, and we'll be putting the lift station there. And he's okay, ma'am. He's our city attorney.
No, check in more.
Oh, man. So,
As you guys can't see, police just escorted our attorney
want him
out.
down twice. Okay. That's funny. Nobody trusts lawyers in here, Mr. Zimmerman, so.
That's the perfect one to get.
That's great. So,
He's running.
but so yes, lift station
he's
16
doing
on
his
the
part.
bay is one of those 11 lift stations. Lift station 45 on Beach Drive is one of those that will be coming off as part of that.
When is that?
So we are 100% of those plans have been with DEM for about a year. DEM is recently, which is the Division of Emergency Management Tallahassee, which is our conduit to FEMA. And now they're with FEMA. I was in Tallahassee a week and a half ago, met with our state representatives as well as a number of the agency heads and staff that our folks work with on a weekly basis, and trying to get an update on where that is in the process. What they've required is that, you know, all of the 100% plans were submitted at once for all 11 lift stations. And they insisted on that. So what we're trying to do is say, hey, rather than y'all hang on to them while y'all review and approve all 11 lift stations, you know, can y'all maybe send them out? And we've kind of got an internal package. We're going to package into 3 different projects, because doing all 11 lift stations as one contractor would be too heavy a lift. And so, but it's really a lot of them are around kind of the Garden Club area, over in the Cove in the Millville area. Obviously that one off Beach Drive, and then also on Wood Avenue, there's one in someone's backyard. Those 2 are going to be combined and come out of the person's backyard and come off the bay. And then, of course, that one at lift station 16. So our goal is, you know, I would really hopefully this spring we can go out to bid on that. Again, but we're kind of waiting on DEM and FEMA, and we did give them that nudge about a week and a half ago.
So moving that lift station to higher ground, the purchase of that higher ground is part of this
Was part of-
mitigation
part of-
or separate that
No,
we
it
have
was,
to purchase?
it was part of it, and let me be clear, that specifically lift station 16 that Commissioner Street's talking about, that is mostly HMGP funding, but there was also some DEP funding in there as well, because they, obviously the Environmental Protection Agency out of Tallahassee and Pensacola would love to see the manhole covers out of the bay, and that lift station building and all of that wet well that's literally right on the edge off as well. So predominantly HMGP funding for all 11, but for specifically lift station 16 at the end of Drummond Avenue, there's some DEP funding as well to help encourage that. So
So to wrap it up, we're just waiting on the feds.
just waiting on the feds, so.
Who wants to go next? Don't be shy. Yes, ma'am. We can go first, yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Rachel Boswell, and I'm here as a representative for St. Andrews Soccer Club. I did come with some thoughts and things prepared, and then last night I got a little flustered because my whole speech kind of got derailed, because we've been asked to submit an application for rental of Oak Grove Field at Robert and Mary Kane Park for the remainder of our spring season. We were approved for 2 weeks, and then we were asked to submit an application that was going to go on the commission meeting for a vote on February 10th. According to the agenda last night, looking at it, it is not on there. And I'm a little flustered by that, because I don't know why. I don't know if it was an oversight or if there was a reason that we weren't put on there. But I'm still going to encourage you that if this can get added to the agenda, to please add it, because as of this week, by Thursday, our 2-week rental is up. And as of this moment, there's one field in all of Panama City, even working with Keith Merrill, the Parks and Rec manager, that is safe enough for us to play soccer on this spring season. And that would be the field at Oak Grove at Robert and Mary Kane Park. We walked Frank Nelson with Keith, and he even confirmed that it's not safe currently for soccer. I walked it myself, and I tripped in a hole, and I couldn't imagine a kid running, not looking out, and I was just walking. And I just want to encourage you to consider us, because the reason some of these fields that aren't safe are because they've been promised to other sports, or they're currently booked by other sports, and there's only one field that we can currently use. We're looking for the spring season. We would like to continue working with the city to find a solution for a long term, because in all of Panama City, there is not one field that is dedicated to soccer. Not one. That is just soccer. You can't play football and soccer on the same field. They're just played very differently, and the wear and tear to the field is just not the same. We currently have about 200 kids, with more coming. We just held tryouts last week, and we had over 100 kids come and try out for our teams. We've had enough that we are possibly even making 2 more teams. The other thing I would like to encourage you is that it is, to my knowledge, that nonprofits, which we're not in it for the money. We do have a fee, but so do all the other sports. Football has a fee, cheerleading has a fee. We try to keep our fees low for a travel soccer team. And according to the application, only the city commission can waive the fee at the request of the licensee. So this is my request to you. We are trying to keep our fees low and affordable to these families. So if we are allowed this rental, we're asking for a reduced fee or no fee to follow precedent of other nonprofits that are renting the fields. We just want to play soccer. We're just looking for a soccer place, and it's up to you guys at this moment to help us figure that out. And I've been doing my best to work with City Manager and Commissioner Lucas. I've been doing the meetings, I've been doing the applications, I've been doing the right things, and I'm just a little flustered this morning from this. So
Yes, ma'am.
Why is it not on the agenda?
Yeah, why is it not on the agenda?
I'll have to check. I did email Ms. Boswell back either late last night or early this morning. So I know we did the 2 weeks, which I believe it's gone well. I haven't heard any negative feedback, and I know that the process was underway. So I just need to get an update from
Well,
Keith.
has she completed the application?
I don't know the answer to that, so I have to get with Keith
No, I have a
on that.
problem with-
I have it at my email. I can show you. I have it from Keith that I have the applications for. I did the 2-week rental that Keith approved, and then I did a separate application for the remainder of the spring season. And I have Keith's confirmation that he received the application. So I did that on the 27th of January because it couldn't be added to that commission meeting because that agenda had already been published. Because my initial meeting was on January 26th. I walked the field with Keith on January 27th. He submitted me the application for rental that afternoon. I sent it right back that evening. He responded the next day that he had received it for both the 2-week and the spring season. So I do have confirmation that by the 28th that was received. So it was in time to be added to the agenda.
But y'all paid full price for the 2-week rental,
Keith
correct?
gave us until the end of the month to pay.
But
which
no
is
reduced fee.
no reduced
Okay.
fee. We would be charged the full amount because he said himself he cannot waive the fee for us. It is up
That's
to
correct.
you as the commission. So he did give us time to pay, which if we need to pay, that's fine, we will. But there is a precedent set that nonprofits don't have to pay. And you guys, it's up to you guys to make that decision. We are trying to keep our fees as low as we can. We are a travel soccer team. We do have fees, but so does football. Glenwood Rattlers, I looked up their prices. They have fees for their seasons for cheerleading and football. And other soccer clubs are pretty much almost double our fees, but they're also in it for the profit. We're in it for the soccer. We're in it for the kids. We're in it for the athletes. We're not in it to make money. So if we have to, now continue to pay where nonprofit, the precedent has been set, we're going to have to raise our fees, and that really limits what we can do or train with these athletes.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to get staff to add that to the next agenda, or one of us can.
Yep.
So we're gonna put it on the next meeting.
One follow-up comment. If you guys remember, we used to have the Roots that used to practice at Frank Nelson too. And this same feedback she just gave was the same thing that
Yeah.
those other soccer clubs have given. So
Roots, how long ago was that?
that was a year,
5
2
years
years
ago?
ago.
Okay, I've never heard of them. So.
Somewhere between 1 and 5.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. But they had to move out to the sports park because of the exact issues of saying, holes in the field, those things. So I think what I'm now understanding, and Judah played soccer, so I remember that fairly well, and then obviously growing up playing Pee Wee football, I guess football kind of creates some divots and rivets inside of the field. And in soccer, because it's a speed sport similar to basketball in that regard, you can't have uneven surfaces without creating injuries. And so when they're asking for a dedicated field, they're asking for the same thing the Roots did, because if soccer play is on a field, then you don't get those same things. You can maintain it for soccer play versus this multi-purpose. My understanding is Frank Nelson was supposed to be an answer to soccer specifically, but we've never maintained it to be a soccer facility. And so I know we've looked previously at AstroTurf and other options which are very expensive, but if we're going to have anyone to play soccer in the city of Panama City, if this is going to be something that we want our people to do, which, representing, the district I represent, there are a lot of soccer players that are in St. Andrews specifically. we've got to figure out how to maintain at least a field for soccer play someplace.
We find ourselves at the intersection of unkept commitments. Oak Grove Field has some unkept commitments that go back more than a decade. Soccer has some unkept commitments that go back several years. And so we find ourselves as a city in a reactive mode, right? Trying to solve this problem, solve that problem. And I think we need some guidance. I did ask, when it comes to fees, I did ask Keith that in his experience, they looked at financials of not of nonprofits, but of applicants who want fees waived and so forth in his other roles as a parks director, and he said yes. So while we can say that there is while there is a precedent of how we've worked with nonprofit sports teams, there also, I think, needs to be a look at the financial ability to pay. Just as what we're talking about with the MLK fees, we're looking at, if you can't pay, here's some scholarship, here's some criteria for that. And is that possible we could have that along with looking at this request by Tuesday?
What, I'm talking about like this, the long-term condition of the fields or?
No, I'm talking about fees now
Fees.
specifically. The request is that we look at on Tuesday the,
Specific application for St. Andrews Soccer Club.
and the fees. And so I would say, what would be our criteria we would be looking at to waive or not waive those fees, or to adjust them in any way?
Right. I don't know that we'll have any type of formal recommendation in those number of days. I have no doubt that Mr. Myrle has thoughts and kind of some input from his past experiences. I know he's kind of working on a broader, consideration for, maybe as part of the, his assessment of the entire PCR department. And he would agree that in looking at, to Ms. Boswell's point, that there is some challenges at Frank Nelson, and he's got a path in his mind that he's working out to, again, identify at Frank Nelson Park a field that would be dedicated to soccer, and what that looks long-term. In fact, even potentially maybe removing the old clubhouse / concession stand and being able to squeeze in a third field over there, and putting in a smaller, more modern type concession stand, which would maximize the space that we have, turning them more east. So I mean, he's been here 2 months. He's working through that. I don't even know if he's been here 2 months yet. It's close. And so he's working to that. And again, I'll get with him first thing Monday morning and find out where we are on this. I think, I just need to get an update from him on
She's
on
gonna
what
be on
happened.
the agenda Tuesday?
I'm going to request it. Where if she's added, that's up to the commission.
So
No, we
the,
can't take action.
and the
No.
question I have is, do we have enough information?
I don't know the answer to that, ma'am.
And
So
well,
I
I'm
do
asking my
know-
colleagues as well,
yeah.
what do we think we need to make a decision?
I do
on
know
Tuesday.
there is no field at Frank Nelson Park that can be used for soccer, at least not this spring season. Keith and his team need some extra time to get one of those fields in the appropriate condition for soccer, because Commissioner Street's correct. There is the wear and tear of a tackle football on a field as compared to, say, flag football or soccer, or, say, lacrosse are totally different. So,
I think too.
Say what-
The question I think you're asking is there enough there for us to have a conversation to be on the agenda? I think she's entitled to that since she's met the requirements of the application, and let us have that open conversation about, what does it take for the field and the rents. I mean, if we're abating rents for other not-for-profits, then I think that needs to be something, a set standard, or you gotta meet these qualifications, and that's not even a question. It's met, and we don't have to have that vote. But I think she's entitled to have that opportunity since she's been working at it.
And I contend that a nonprofit is like a private business.
Oh, yeah.
So, in as much as you can have a nonprofit that's, under $50,000 operating at a community level, or you can have a profitable nonprofit, because nonprofits can't stay in business if they don't make a profit, right? And so, just to say that the loan criteria is to be a nonprofit doesn't mean that we're looking at apples and apples and oranges and oranges.
I think for me, whatever decision we make will be a temporary one until we can get through this further conversation. But I mean, I think it's relevant to try and, you know, allow youth sports to continue in some capacity from the city's perspective.
And just a couple fun little pieces in case you guys didn't know. On Panama City's website, your website, if you go and you look at sports, if you click on soccer, it is St. Andrew's Soccer Club that people are promoted to. So we are very happy to represent the city of Panama. We are the only travel team that practices in Panama City. Everybody else is beachside, other than your rec leagues like Callaway, Lynn Haven, and Baytown or BCYSA. But also 80% of our team, 80% of our kids actually come from all of your wards. They come from Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, Ward 4, and about 75% of them live within 2 miles of Frank Nelson and Oak Grove Field. So we are trying to stay in that vicinity. It's because we have kids that walk, so we are concerned with the traffic. We have kids that ride their bikes because their parents are working and can't get them there. So we are trying to stay in that vicinity because we still want to represent you, Panama City, and your kids. Like, these are your kids that you are watching over. So we are happy to be that representative. And again, we're small. We started 2 years ago. We're the majority of the money that's been put into our thing has been owner or president involvement, investment. So we're not in it to make money. We're not making money. So
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
thank you.
Super interesting going door to door. Like when we started having the conversation about Frank Nelson a few years ago, you know, I remember Drummond Park Pee Wee football. I remember that being like the thing that was like, oh my goodness, we got to bring this back. But then when I actually got out there, I realized soccer was way more popular, specifically within the nearby neighborhoods than PV football was in the Drummond Park area, at least.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just interesting to see how
Yeah.
sports changes and our
They
interests
do.
change.
Daphne Park used to have 2 baseball fields, and now it's primarily football. They practice football on the baseball field, and so sports come and go, and neighborhoods change, all that kind of thing. So, yes, sir.
Virgil, Marshall. I'm confused to the point why we're here. Because of after Cameron's performance back in December the 6th, I was shown an email that said, hey, you created this issue because you chose to build out next to a field you didn't have access and to go somewhere else. So why is this even an issue? Okay. Secondly, because we do want to work with them, Keith Merrill talked to me and said, Virgil, can they rent it for 2 weeks and stuff like that? And said, if they want to have tryouts only. In a meeting that we had in Mr. Hayes' office, she indicated that that was a way for them to fund their travel team. You've got people that are paying $400 per season, $800 per year. Okay, they can rent the fields because they have the means to pay for it. But the reason that they're here and it appeals to them is because of the soccer lab that's built up in units 5 and 6 of the vending machine. And if you go and check the county's website, there's been no permits, no nothing in there. So there's a whole lot of stuff in there because I've had conversations with Cameron. I've been to the soccer lab. He showed me the weight room that's on top of his office. If you were to go and check the county's website right now, there's been no permits, no nothing for it. It's just an empty space. So there's some funny business going on there. Please look into it.
Thank you.
I think the only reason why I think we're having this discussion, unless I misunderstood, is because Keith came back and said there is literally no other field. Is that what I understand?
At this time, that's correct. There's some additional work that needs to be done at Frank Nelson Park, and that is a focus of his team, but it's not going to be ready this spring.
Yeah, can you give us the number? Does Keith have a number on what it would take to get that and what the timeline is when we discuss it on
Yep,
Tuesday?
I'll try to get an update by close of business Monday from Keith so that you guys have it in advance of Tuesday's meeting.
Yeah, so Virgil, I mean, from my perspective, it's not about like, hey, are we going to make a long-term commitment to Oak Grove Field? It's about trying to take staff's input and trying to find, okay, where can this fit? And if they're telling us nothing else can work right now, but they need time to get something else ready.
And I understand that, Commissioner Street. They were told to look at other places outside the city of Panama City and its municipal parks. They were told to look at Bay District schools, the college, They was looking at the city of Lynn Haven, everywhere else. They said to look outside of Panama City and its municipal parks. So that's why I'm saying, why are we here if that's what they were told?
No, I don't think, I don't know if anyone said you're not allowed to operate your nonprofit in one of our parks. If the Glenwood Rattlers, which I'm very much involved in, had field maintenance this spring, and we had a spring season coming up, and they said, my goodness, we have couple hundred kids that want to play football. Can you help us find a place? I'd be advocating for them to find a place on a baseball field. You know, we
Absolutely.
practice on a baseball field, and none of the baseball teams get mad at us. It's called the Glenwood Rattlers, but it's in Millville. And the Millville neighborhood doesn't go, you don't belong in our neighborhood, you're from Glenwood. It's just a park, and we use the parks for the kids, and the kids, it's all about the kids. And so it's a collaboration for the kids, is all I'm trying to do. I'd love to see the soccer club find an even better place, like where they don't have this. I don't think they want to operate in contention either, and they're not having a good time with us either. And so I think they would be willing, if they find a better spot to move there, if they could financially, or if we could find another spot for them instantly, we would do that. We'd be flexible. But this is about the kids and ensuring that the kids can play soccer.
And for me, I was surprised in this conversation to hear that we still don't have a soccer field ready at Frank Nelson.
Yeah.
So like that was not, I was not aware of that. And so that means, what that's telling me is like we do not have, just how Janice communicated, we've obviously got an unmet, are we gonna say that the city of Panama City will not have soccer at any of our parks? And I don't want to say that. And
That's what it says now.
And that's what it's saying now. And so we've got to figure out a way through this to offer programs for kids that want to play soccer, pee-wee football, whatever it is.
And by default, the Hill community is saying, we had some commitments promised to us prior to this current dilemma. And so that's a factor in the decision as well. And I've tried to communicate to the soccer club that I personally am looking for a win-win. And the concerns coming from the community is that by default, Oak Grove Field does not become the city soccer field.
Understood. And I think that's heard loud and clear. So
Didn't Frank Nelson get redone by one of the soccer clubs?
I think it was the
We named it
Was
after.
it, was
Yeah.
it Roots?
we've named it after a soccer.
And I can't say the
Long time,
name of the family, but
yeah.
it's
They're
established-
actually a part of the St. Andrews family. They're
Yeah.
in the academy program.
Yeah, we get that, but I'm saying
Yeah.
the commitment from the city by naming the soccer field, which we just did
I know,
last
that's
year.
what-
Oh, go Akachia.
Yes.
It's not
And-
that hard. Go
So
Akachia.
I was
It
I was
is when you
surprised
don't
to
have it
hear
in your
that
head.
Yeah.
and I think there's like 8 fields there. Out of
Yeah.
those 8 fields, there's not one that's ready to play soccer. So
Wow.
that's
I think there's only 3. There could be like 4 potentially.
for
So
how many?
I'm not aware of
Between 3
the
and
St. Andrews Soccer Club being told to look outside of the city. I know we talked about Palm Bay Academy, we talked about Covenant Christian School, and we talked about Gulf Coast State College. Maybe you
Well,
can
the
speak to your
reference is to the letter
communications.
that
Yeah,
Mayor
and
Branch
that
sent,
was
Oh,
who
okay.
did not list.
Yeah, and in reference to exclusivity. So if their need is, we have to have this field, it's our field, it's no one else is using it, then yes, I would definitely say, if there's no flexibility in that statement, then definitely look for other spots.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and
I
when
just
I'm
wanna-
saying soccer, I'm saying soccer for any organization that's playing soccer. So because the field now, as I understand it, does have to be maintained at a different standard. I'm sorry.
Yep.
You're great. I just want to clear a few things up. Our soccer lab is completely its own business. Everybody in the academy on the St. Andrews Soccer Club gets a free membership to the lab, but that is its own business. It's its own separate thing. And yeah, the location to the Oak Grove Field at Robert Mary King Park to our lab is lovely because we can do indoor and outdoor things, but that is not, we're not tied to that. If we had been asked to go to Frank Nelson, if it had been safe, we would have done that. We also polled our parents with some of the fields that you listed, Mayor, and with other fields that we knew were available. And if we move much further than Frank Nelson or Oak Grove Field, we will lose at least half of our parents. We will lose at least half. If we go 15 minutes this way, if we go 15 minutes this way, north, south, any which way we go, if we go 15 minutes, we will lose half of our teams. And that really affects how the teams then operate, because if we don't have enough for teams, then we don't have enough to play. And then we don't have a league.
Is that because the parent can't get the kid there?
Yes. So we do have a lot of kids right now that have the ability to walk to Oak Grove Field and Frank Nelson. So that's why we try to stay in that vicinity. We walked the field with Keith because if it had been safe and that's where we could go for the spring season and even long term, we absolutely would have gone. But as it currently stands, even speaking with Keith, the Oak Grove Field at Robert Mary King Park is the only one that is currently safe enough to get us through the spring season. That goes to mid-May. We're looking for Tuesday, Thursday. Now, there is consideration because, as you said, we're not looking for exclusivity. We would love to have a home, kind of like the Glenwood Rattlers have, Daffin Park and Panhandle Falcons. It says home of the Panhandle Falcons at Frank Nelson Park. Like, we'd love to have a place that is like our park to play. But our concern, too, though, is that by renting the field for our spring season, if you then rent it out to football as well, you're just going to run into the same problems as Frank Nelson. It's now going to become unsafe for us to use even through the spring season. We didn't use the field on Thursday. We had rented it. We did not use it on Thursday to maintain the integrity of the field because the sprinklers still run even in the rain, and it had rained pretty hard. So we did not want to touch the field because we knew it would be swampy. We didn't want to, we were looking out for the safety of the players and the integrity of the field. So we emailed Keith and said, due to the rain, we're not going to use the field because that's what we do. And then it was great because we did have our indoor space right there to use, but that's our indoor space. That's completely separate. Like, that has nothing to do with the academy. Yes, every academy player gets a free membership, and anybody can get a membership to the soccer lab. You can come do our speed and agility classes as a football player. We actually have some that come. That anybody can do that, but that is completely separate. And so, in any construction that has been done, I don't know about the permits, but the owners, Giambria, they were doing the construction for us, and they were allowing the expansion. So if there are permits, it would be under them, or we're just renting the space. It's not our space. So we just rent it, but we use it, so.
So to be fair to them, I think the exclusivity piece of it was tied to the amount of money that they were gonna be willing to drop into the
Yeah,
project.
that's true.
I think that was the,
And it's not, also the context, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the exclusivity isn't it's a really terrible word. What we're looking is priority scheduling. If our team needs the field, because Cameron has done a lot of research and he's very good at the field maintenance and understanding the field. But if you continue to have multiple teams on the field, like use after use after use, you're going to wear it out a lot faster. So we were looking for a priority scheduling for our team, it would still, everything would be, whatever field we go to or anything, we're never shutting it down to the community. And I know that was a big thing. Everybody thought we were taking it from the community, we were shutting it down. And in fact, that's not the case at all. We're inviting the community to come out. We host an open play, and that's for the community. That's not just us, that's the whole community. Come out and play soccer. So the exclusivity is really kind of killing me because we're not looking to be exclusive. We're looking for soccer. Like I said, you can't put football and soccer on the same field because then that's where the issues tackle football, because that's where the issues continue to happen with the integrity of the field. So we're looking for something where it can be our priority for our team to practice, kind of like the Glenwood Rattlers have Daffin Park and the Panhandle Falcons have Frank
Well,
Nelson.
they don't have
But they have priority schedule of using it.
With all due respect, you say you don't want exclusivity, but you can't have football come behind it because that tears it up. But that essentially creates exclusivity.
Yeah.
But exclusivity is soccer, not our team.
Yeah.
The sport.
Like a
So
sport,
my mind
lacrosse,
teeters back and forth,
soccer.
too.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it in another context of trying to understand it in another direction, which would be if we had a Little League baseball team, and a baseball field is kind of a one-use field. You're not really,
Very manicured.
and so I was thinking if the Bay High golf team wanted to come practice their chipping in the infield, you'd say, whoa, 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 this is meant for baseball.
Don't
You're
dig
gonna put-
holes-
you're
don't
gonna put
dig
holes
holes in it,
everywhere.
yeah.
And so it's similar to that. It feels weird to say we want our own field that we have. It's really we're gonna put money into it, which I like. But then I don't like the feeling of it's ours and it's our priority, even though it's a neighborhood park. So it's weird. It's like I've
So,
got
and the
bounced back and forth.
comparison to Daffin Park is
Yeah.
not apples to apples either. Because Daffin Park
Yeah.
has the ability or has the space for other things to go on.
Other things,
At
yeah.
the Oak Grove Field, not including the undeveloped part that the city owns,
Mm-hmm.
there's very little you can do there if you're doing soccer there, if that's the priority,
Can
right?
we have two? Can we develop that piece and have peace and have both there.
Yeah, even, the football team practices on the baseball field occasionally, but at some point, the baseball team, if we were tearing the field up so much, we're the same conversation, like, hey, you're tearing the baseball field up. And so, yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want someone, we wouldn't want, going to Riley's, that's not our field, we don't have priority, we just rather use it. But if they were gonna host a food truck rally on it, you'd be like, hey, don't drive cars on the field, no matter what the sport would be. So you'd there are prohibited uses on any field of like vehicles and
So
whatever
it becomes
else.
more problematic when
Yeah.
we've only got one space.
It is, that's the problem.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think Frank Nelson is a good location for soccer. I mean, I probably would say something different if we said the whole facility is gonna be soccer. I mean, maybe there does need to be Pee Wee football.
You could also do flag football there, because
Yeah.
flag
So
football
there-
would not have
yeah.
the negative
So-
impact.
Yeah, the sooner that we can get a field at Frank Nelson Park, that's, I think, the solution. Because that park, one, the city intended it to be for soccer, named it after a prominent soccer family. And the sooner we can get that field ready for soccer, I think that resolves this issue.
Yeah. The other idea that we've kind of kicked around, Commissioner Lucas and I did with, I can't remember, have so many meetings, I sometimes forget who's in each meeting, but, there's a lot of land to the north of Oak Grove Field as well, that we could potentially put another field kind of in the top right quadrant, and then to the left, come up with like a little trail, maybe with some stormwater, treatment back in there, because it is kind of lowland back in there, but there is
And I
some
would say
additional
both
potential
and.
there.
You know,
So,
the immediate
both and, yes, ma'am.
solution now and development of the acreage, which would double the park,
Yeah, absolutely would.
what we already own. And that's where this comes into play with helping to what that vision should be.
Yes, sir. Come on up.
Thank you. That's the point I was gonna go to. I understand that there is a recovery loan that we're building we talked about, you all talked about, putting in the 50 slips at that. And I think it was like 150 million or something like that. Just add another million. Put that, and redo the park, just like y'all were talking about.
Sure.
And
Were you in sales, Bert?
It's just numbers.
no, but I want peace of mind.
Well, but in all fairness, there was a lot of apprehension across the board of borrowing money to even build slips that then create revenue, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
I think we all love quality of life, but there's apprehension of anytime you borrow money, it has to be paid back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if we build that, and I'm aware of the plans to open up another 2.5 acres out there, put a sports complex type up there that could be used for any sport. The lighting for sports would be back there, so not to disrupt the neighborhood. Then we could have it, and we could both coexist, because while they're there, they're in the back, we're there, that would open up the parking and everything. So that's the real, solution. They'll have a temporary place to play, soccer, whatever it is, until they get Frank Nelson. And then if they wanna have games or whatever it is, that other 2.5 acres that they're open up will be available there, and the citizens will have the park. So the question is, are we willing to put this to bed for good by going in debt to fix a park that was owed to the community back when they bought the additional parcels in 05 and 08? Otherwise, this is a festering sore, and it needs to heal. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
About the park, soccer park. Sweet Bay have a bunch of property where the airport is at. Nobody, when they start building, nobody decide to build a park inside of Sweet Bay. For soccer, y'all got a piece of property, a park, the county gave y'all on Lisbon Avenue. Have they tried to see what the people let them build a soccer park on that park? City probably got a bunch of land inside of St. Andrews that you probably can build a park that they could look at. They want to build a soccer park instead of trying to get the one that's been in the neighborhood for years. If the children goes on the soccer park, and you talking about playing football, they're just out there playing, they go kick up grass, tear it up. So that get rid of their freedom, that they can't go out there and play in the park. So we need to see what we can do. The city themselves all got land. But tell me where y'all got land at. Might have some side of my house. I don't know of. But let them look at some of the land that y'all got. Y'all can take that. They want to straight make a park, let them make a park on that piece of land they choose that the city would give them to make a soccer park.
So what we're talking about is fulfilling what's already been stated by the city many years ago, that Frank Nelson would be that soccer park. And for whatever reasons, it is no longer set for soccer. And so that's, I think, a short-term, immediate, that we can make that field a soccer field, as it was intended and has been named to be.
Correct. I know it. That's what we do. But they don't want that. They said
No,
they
that's
want.
not
They
what she
said they
said.
want. They
She
said they
said
want
they-
something close so their children can walk to. And Frankfurt Avenue is not a nice place to be walking across over to that side for children to be walking, not having some particular some parent watching them going across that road. Now, that's what I heard.
Well, she said this
But-
morning, both Frank Nelson and Oak
She,
Grove.
I understand, sister, but she said that their children have a place that they can walk to. Now, that's the problem. Any place is not a good place for children to walk.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next?
Okay, I don't know if this landed in your mitt, Jonathan. When Mr. Walter P. was saying, can you do some type of thing about the sewer and the flowers and the water? I hope you'll do one of those great videos that y'all do, and possibly a letter, because I get in trouble at my house because I'm married to an energy manager and a utilities engineer, and I leave the hose on and I run the dishwasher too much. So this was helpful to me so that I can go and report back. So I know there was a lot of talk.
You trying to get out of trouble.
Yep.
Report back that your husband was correct?
Correct. No, I don't always say that. He's so
Speak
smart.
loudly into the microphone.
I tried to get him to come. And also props to Charlotte, because I've been working out of state and Rick had been in Europe, and we were three bills behind on our water. And I opened it when I got back week before last, and I was like, and he was in Europe, so I don't know why y'all didn't cut us off. Perhaps she looked at the historical data, but you certainly could have. So I feel like there is some discernment there, and we paid it. I can't remember, Josh, when you came in, and Jonathan, when you came, if Tony was still working here, Tony Champlain in the CRA?
No.
Okay.
We both started in May of '21, and she had already retired.
She had retired. So I'm back to that lot on Louisiana that needed some remediation. At some point, I remember this, she had about, I want to say $30,000 a year in her CRA duties, that one of the maintenance yard employees would come by to the office, and when people would come in, I would take the notes when she wasn't in her office and put the addresses down for her. And they would mow something or mow the alleys, because Tony was really on it. She would drive around in the CRA zone, and then I recall she would bill the hours, or somebody would bill it back to whatever department it started to. And then I remember at the end of the year, people would come and say, this is that, or the swamp is backing up, or it's stinking, or snakes, or whatever it was. And she'd say, oh, we'll get some new money in January, so hang on, you're in the waiting list. And I remember she even did that as part of Reconcile. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I did want to provide that context, because I do remember seeing that person come every week, and then pictures and all those kind of things. It was a customer service perk. Last thing I want to say is, Jonathan, you know that I lived on the border for a long time, and soccer was so important that people would come from across the United States to McAllen to put their children in the summer league because across the border, the high level of play would come across to McAllen and Brownsville. And then you were hoping to get courted to go to Houston, which is the highest level of play and league and the most college scholarships. And when we worked on that, because I was working with a home builder at that time across the 4 counties of the border, I pulled economic development funds for that developer. And it's easier when you have just clean land, right, and not a legacy city, to make sure we had those soccer fields, because the border had already established itself as the place to be to encounter and hopefully get into that Houston League. I'm over time. Last 2 days, I was in Walton County doing some work for some projects there, and I remember thinking I felt envious about when you have raw land and you're in the early phases of planning something, how easy it is to do soccer fields and different things like that. And then before that, I went and looked at the county's public's sports park funds to see over time how much revenue soccer and all the sports are creating at Publix Park, so I could use that as a metric to determine whether these developers in Walton County want to do a little bit more or not more. I was pulling all those metrics, so that's just a coincidence.
Thank
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak? Yes, ma'am, come on down.
Hi there, good morning. I wasn't actually planning on speaking today, but I'm just sitting here feeling moved to do so. My name is Erica. I'm a resident of Ward 1. And first, I just want to affirm all of you for the hard work that you've done to get the MLK Rec Center to where it's at today. I was so inspired at the grand opening, and I've been spending as much time as I can there. And as a resident, I felt moved to volunteer. And so I know you guys are working really hard to figure out all the ins and outs of how residents can engage to be meaningfully occupied there. And so one of the things that I wanted to lift up this morning, I've already talked with the mayor about this, and I met with the city parks and rec this past week. That's why I wasn't planning on speaking, but hearing everyone talk, I thought maybe this is a good forum to lift this up. I thought about the entryway to engagement and volunteerism and just the open culture of communication that I see here in this town hall, sort of be the change you wish to see. And I know that we have a website space dedicated with an email address. If you'd like to volunteer, please email. But thinking about the MLK Rec Center and all of the parks and recs and other opportunities for people to actually find a dedicated area in which they would like to contribute, I went to some other city websites and city domains to see how other municipalities look at opportunities to plug people in. And I know the city has done things like helping with this cemetery or helping with this block, but I found some really unique, I guess you would say, menu of options for cities to say, if you are interested in leaning in here and the use, or in parks and rec, or in gardening, or whatever it is. And so just wanted to put that out there, that I'm exploring that, and wanted to volunteer my own time to perhaps a sector of the youth. So I'm very interested in, you know, creating an opportunity for citizens to volunteer, for youth to be able to shadow and really mirror people like yourself. Gentleman earlier talked about, you know, civics briefly, but, you know, how do we volunteer or have volunteer days where we teach people how to get a library card, or how to vote, or how to clean up their block, or how to, Mayor, you know, I signed up for one of the volunteer days to pick up trash during your campaign, and I was amazed. I mean, I have to kind of admit that I couldn't believe the small group of people that, I mean, obviously, you know, showing up and contributing a few hours, but really the transformation that happened just in a few hours with a group of 15 people. And so just wanted to just really lift that up, that that's something that I'm interested in, I'm working on. I've talked with you briefly about it, Alan. I met with Parks and City this past week. I've been corresponding back and forth with some other city models that I've been looking at, and really just say that I particularly am interested in not only just individually at the MLK Rec Center, but whatever that youth vertical of really empowering our youth to also spend their time, treasure, and talents giving back. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts or ideas or just general feedback about just how we as a city can come up with a wants wishes, needs list of how we can actually give citizens opportunities to get back in unique ways that benefit us.
I love it. One of the things that Eric and I met about was getting kids to the rec that aren't near the rec. And we have an email thread with Bayway. And so Bayway has a route that could take kids. I don't believe they could do it under 12, but they also have guides they could put on the bus for kids. I think it's $1.50, but it'd be interesting to find a collaboration between us promoting Bayway, or maybe Bayway going into the neighborhoods more, saying, hey, get to this amazing facility, and we find a sponsor, $1 a kid each direction would be awesome. Or even talking to churches about them, sponsoring kids to get to the rec for classes and things like that. So some collaborating between, organizations that already have assets and routes and getting kids there. Oh, that was me. That's me. I was like, what's the drumming come? I love volunteerism. I think volunteerism is a key component to feeling like you live where you belong. And picking up trash is a simple one. I need to start doing that more with people. That was so much fun. There's an email thread. Erica met with Kessia this past week, and there's an email thread about how other cities encourage volunteerism, that sort of stuff. So she's working with the right people at the city and hoping to make some progress on Bayway. You might see an email thread that comes to Jonathan from that.
Yeah, and there are lots of volunteer opportunities for a number of departments. I mean, whether it be cemetery cleanup, some of the stuff with World Changers that we do. But always open to, finding ways to expand that. I will note it obviously is, there's a higher level of complexity when it comes to dealing with kiddos on behalf of
for
the
sure,
city
definitely.
in a volunteer capacity. So
Yeah.
we've got the right folks involved in that for sure.
Yeah, and on that note, I also volunteered as well. I work for Florida's largest state agency, the Department of Corrections, so I'm very familiar with background screening and level 2 screening and plugging into different elements. So I volunteered to really pass off our process. I mean, everything that we do, from recruiting to screening, I mean, we don't do a plug and play. I mean, if you're interested in chaplaincy services or parents or veterans and honors or reentry or faith and character, so really not just a kind of array, but more of a designated, this is currently what the city has a need for and where you can plug in and sort of a menu of options. And so some of the contributions that I sent over as ideas would sort of mirror that, and I'd be happy to hand over our processes, procedures, risk mitigations, background screening templates. I mean, honestly, just everything we use, I'd be happy to share in a work group if that's something that you guys entertain, and really just wanted to lift it up here more for an idea to just dream about a little bit of like, what would we want if we as a city said, let's deploy these people? What are the things we would want to engage people in? So
Certainly, I like the idea, the approach, and the city manager and I are planning the next meeting of community engagement around the MLK Junior Rec Center. And it's how to partner with the rec. So there are those who have the initiative, the drive, that mind calling the mayor or whoever, and there are others who are like, well, I'd like to do something, but don't know where to start. And so what I hear you proposing is a process and a system and a way of doing that that's thorough, as you've always been, in considering the what should be as a part of that process and so forth.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've contended, and several of us here have said that many citizens want to be more involved. And right after the hurricane, the city couldn't not accept any help because we all needed it and we were helping each other. And so as we get further and further away from that emergency all hands on deck, I think we need to build in systems and ways like what you're talking about, so folks can still continue to be a part and not feel like, the city government is just telling everybody what to do and picking who can do what and who can't.
yes, ma'am. That's spot on. Yeah, perfect. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Two things. One, I think we still have an element of the crisis that exists from Hurricane Michael. We now have a new element called the connection crisis, and everybody has a desire to provide meaningful work back to someone. And I think any kind of process that we can create that makes it easier to onboard volunteers through our process is fantastic. One of the things you said about the transit piece, we do have a transit subcommittee meeting on Wednesday. If there's any information that we would like brought forward to that specific committee, which is the one that oversees Bayway, If you could give it to Jonathan and just send it to me, I'm happy to bring it up. We do charge for rides, but that doesn't mean we have to charge for rides. And so this could be one of the elements that we could have a discussion on for helping young people. I don't know if there's federal regulations around the 12-year-old or anything like that, but it's not just for MLK that we've talked in transit for transportation stuff. We've talked about it before with schools. We've talked it before in other things to help. I mean, the bottom line is there's more absent parents now than there probably ever have been in our country's history. And that's because they're trying to make a living too sometimes. But, if there's any way that we can help ensure that we get kids to the places where they can get the most help, I think we'd love to be a part.
The community nonprofit fund board has approved a scholarship program. So I think transit could possibly be a part of that, where we contract or have an agreement, agreement with Bayway to provide dollars toward folk who can, or the kids or what's been suggested here. That people who want to give to support people getting access to the rec and other resources in the city, we have a venue, a process for that, a fund for that.
Yes, come on down.
Just one more thing to piggyback, and forgive me if you guys already have this in place, but is there, I know there's organizations that have like processes and programs around this, but has the city ever had a program, to you guys' knowledge, around youth shadowing you all in your roles in civics and learning about just generally how they could see themselves in your roles before, like how to be a mayor for the day and how to just not just the
365 of those.
The only thing I've seen close to that is when they bring classrooms through here and
Okay.
we wind up talking to
all
them.
right. Yeah, so I'm just putting that out there as just would be like a tier that I would personally be willing to help with as we evolve into different sectors of engaging retired folks, youth, et cetera.
So let's talk about that. One of the groups that came, I guess it was summer 24, the House of Hope brought a group over. They did the City Hall tour, but I took them over to where we meet as City Commission and had them role play. Had them watch a video clip of the opening of a City Commission meeting and then had them role play just the opening from the gavel to the prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think maybe one item, and then closed out.
Perfect.
That was because they wanted to come and do something, and I added that little flavor to it. But I've since thought, how do we do that more regularly? And I would love to do some sort of civic government class. Many years ago, I was in the first one that the Bay County did, and that, we could do that kind of how to learn more about your government,
Yes.
and how the government works at the city level.
Perfect.
Yeah, we do have
Can't go to
kids.
schools anymore, because now they gotta sign something where you go and talk to them, and it'd be fun to take it in or bring it
Well,
in.
and even just see different departments, like tour of the wastewater treatment plant or tour of the city
Right.
yard, or what does that look like? Shadowing one of us for the day would be very boring. It would just be like looking at very angry emails,
I disagree with
watching me get yelled at,
that. It would be eye-opening.
me
Yeah.
crying at my desk.
Yeah.
Right.
Great. Thank you all.
About water leaks.
Yeah.
Let's go look at the water coming out of the ground.
Look at that!
Yeah, yep, that's water.
I'll never forget looking through the headworks at the Millville wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, Rufus Wood
Never
again,
forget it.
and with what the sister just mentioned, they used to do that. I think that was during Mayor Bernicki. They did a day with the students that would follow the mayor and the commissioners around. I don't know what happened, but they used to do that. But I rose to say that this month is Black History Month. In fact, this is the centennial celebration. The Bay County branch NAACP will be sponsoring a program on Monday at 4 o'clock here. We'll be in the Rotunda. We're partnering again with the Parks, Culture and Recreation Department. So we want to extend a cordial invitation to all of you. Hopefully by now the mayor and the commissioners have received your invitation. If not, I'm sure you will receive it but I wanted to make you aware that we will be doing that. And during this era in which, unfortunately, they're banning books and there's a move for revisionist history, it is so important that our children know their history. So we set the program at 4 o'clock, hopefully to get our young people here. We would probably do it earlier otherwise, but we set it at 4 o'clock so that the kids can be out of school and hopefully we can get them here. So we want to extend an invitation to you all to come and to be a part of the program. Again, that's Monday at 4 o'clock. We would appreciate your presence, Mayor and Commissioners, and to all who are present here to come and celebrate with us. It started in 1926 with Dr. Carter G. Woodson with Negro History Week, and now we have Black History Month, and we're very proud of that. I know you've heard about Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth, but we want to focus on some of the African Americans who have made a difference in this community. So our focus will be on Black history here locally. So again, we want to invite you to come and share, and please help us to get the word out, particularly to our young people. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
It's on everybody's calendar for the record. So, yes, sir.
No, so I say, here you go again. What the city is doing for sewer, water, putting in new sewer lines, new sewer mains. Yes, some of that you're going to stop the sewer from going into the water system. Some you will never stop the water from going into the sewer system, because you cannot ride the manholes in the streets. If you do, you'll tear up folks' cars. So you go, what you're doing it's going to help. It's not going to completely stop your problems, what you have. So it kind of bothered me that I don't know where y'all come from, changing the water lines from an 8 to a 6. Some areas have bigger water lines. Some areas in the city, Patterson City, got a 10-inch water main. They got a 12-inch water main. Got a 16-inch water main. 16-inch water main, they would never let us tie to it, and I finally tied to it. They said it was just for the hospital. From Millville to St. Andrews, all the way into Glenwood. I figured the city could have saved money. But what they're saying, well, the government is paying for it, so why don't we just spend it? I don't like that attitude. I put brand new water lines into the coal, into the alleys. City had a brand new 6-inch, 8-inch water main in the coal already. I don't know how y'all did when y'all went in there and did that work in the coal. Y'all put water lines in the front of the houses or what? They made us put them in the alley. They didn't want us to put them, tear the coal people's yard, putting in water lines. So they made us put them in the alley. Down the other streets, we put 6-inch water lines. We was told that no fire hydrant could go on the water main, had to be a 6-inch line. Other than that, you could not set a fire hydrant. Because we had some fire hydrants sitting on a 4-inch line, we had fire hydrants sitting on 3-inch lines. So those lines are brand new PVC lines, same PVC line that y'all putting in 8-inch, going down these streets from Millville to St. Andrews to the coal. Brand new 6-inch mains. And I just can't see it that y'all just putting these lines in when there's lines already. I could see that if you're putting it in for a purpose to keep from cutting the streets, to putting a service across the street. That's good. That's a good thing to do. But other than that, just taking that water line, killing that line, a dead, a brand new line, dead line, make it dead. I don't know if they struck into those lines, why they been putting in the new lines or what.
Yes, sir, thank you.
But y'all have brand new lines in the line.
Yes, sir, thank
No.
you.
Thank you too. Everybody else sit up here, you didn't say thank you.
Thank you.
You just let them talk.
Oh,
We like to, we are.
Everybody gets 3 minutes, you know,
we-
just
I
wrap
know
up your
it.
thoughts,
He
yes,
did,
sir.
he did more than you let him do. I pay attention.
If it wasn't the fourth time you've spoken,
Yeah,
you
I
know the
it,
routine, you
but
know the
I
routine,
pay,
yes,
I pay
sir.
attention. When I'm doing so, I pay attention. Watch what you say.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak today? Yes, sir, Derek Thomas, come on down.
Good morning. I wish you did these meetings a little bit later. I like the idea of the bat, the T-shirts you were talking about, Mr. Mayor, the bat boxes, and that'd be a good idea. And
Yes.
bat boxes smell better than bug spray. Why don't I have the kids at the high school making bat boxes and have donate them to the city at the MLK Rec Center or downtown? Or, give people the opportunity, if they build a bat box, you will hang it and go into the parks and get a lift and bring it up high enough and, attach them professionally to the tree without damaging the tree. So if you don't have that, you can still build a bat box and chip in and learn how to build a bat box.
Every time you say bat box, you have to do the do-do-do-do-do.
And then the cats are better than rats, like in the Coliseum. They give the people that have authority to go around the Coliseum a special right to say that they have something. So you're not asking them to just do something and not giving them something back. So if you had that to the parks, any park that you give away and sell in a residential neighborhood, you have to figure out everybody within 10 blocks and let them have the opportunity to work on that park and contact them. And if they don't, or you sell that park, you have to give them a reduction in their property taxes because you have reduced their property value. Keep that in mind. On the next Tuesday meeting, there is a thing for you're gonna give the Gormans money for the plans, and the plans you showed for the south side weren't the plans that you picked. The plans that you picked were, they were given 5 choices. You picked choice number 4. I pointed out the next meeting, that was the one that was the most like the marina that was there before. And now apparently your plans show something different. I'd like you to look into that before the Tuesday meeting. For code enforcement, the person that I pointed out at the last City Hall, East 9th Street, 2100 and 2200 block. The records you've provided to me are incomplete, and that is a common occurrence when you're doing work on the property next to me. I've asked for records. Those records are incomplete. I would like to make a records request for all the local groups and organizations. After the hurricane, they handed out a pamphlet for they told you how to be a code enforcement officer, and at the end of it, it says the decision is made by code enforcement officers who the city goes after and who the city decides not to go after. Or as Lance say, it's up to us to who we enforce the codes on and who we don't. They're up to $73,500 in day fines. You're paying people about $200 an hour to pick up trash and cut down, weeds. So why not do that now? In the Buccaneer property, they charge them about $800 an hour for an hour's worth of work, and they charge them over $20,000 in late fines. So if the city is to do that and put that kind of lien on somebody's property, you should respect the people enough to give records at least.
Thank you. A couple items that he touched on, just kind of internal things that Jonathan and I have been discussing. And I mentioned it to Derek Thomas. There's cities around Florida that are moving to reducing bug population with bat boxes. They're like these a bat box is literally a little wooden box that has an open bottom on it, these little slats of wood. And they put them on a pole, and they cost very little money, but bats eat like 2,000 mosquitoes every night. And at dusk, all the bats fly out of them. Gainesville has them, Austin, Texas. There's a bunch of cities in Florida that are moving to them because they don't really cost anything, and they eat a lot of bugs, and they're kind of cool to watch. and there's no issue with rabies and everything like that. There's a group near Gainesville called Lucee, LUCEE, Bat Conservation Group, and they actually work with cities. And I said, I'll fundraise the money. They're only like $1,000 or $2,000. You can do them incrementally, and it'll be a fun sort of community project. And they need to pick an area that, you want to pick an area that's not near a tree, because predators will sit on a tree and wait for the bat to fly out, and they'll grab, like a hawk would grab the bat. So there's little nuances to that. But it's something that Jonathan and I had talked about here recently, of something fun to work on, because his job is so heavy at times. I'm like, I need something fun to work on and heavy at the same time. So it's something that we're discussing, and there's an email thread with Lucy. Yeah.
Yep. Bat box.
Bat box. It could be the Batmare. So that was something fun that we're working on. And there's even a park a city in Central Florida that they have a white historic home that's owned by the city, and it looks gray in the evenings because there's so many bugs on the house. They put a bat box nearby, and it eats all the bugs away, and it's kind of cool. So something fun to work on. So that was one of my little fun projects I'm working on. So you might see that come around here soon.
Yeah. Regarding the comment about the Gormans, I'm not sure if that was, I'm assuming that was the downtown marina. They weren't involved in the design of that. That was the city with St. Joe, and we picked Ward 4. Yeah.
And we're gonna pay them for money, we're gonna pay them for work they haven't done.
Yeah.
You see nothing.
I don't know that, I just know that when you get it back, the information.
Yeah, I mean, there's people online that aren't gonna be able to hear it.
The public about the contract, you do that 4 hours after the public comment is closed, so I don't wanna get surprised again after the public comment is closed and you haven't provided the information so that people can make an actual comment. That's my point.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Virgil, Marshall, this is an easy one. I went back and watched your housing meeting, and Jonathan, you asked everybody to introduce everybody and they walk around there, but when they were talking, you couldn't see who was talking. So if you would look into your IT thing, there's a thing out there called like OWL conferencing, so whoever speaks, it turns to them, stuff like that. Because people do watch that stuff online, and it'll be easier to put a face with a name, which is what we all try to do when we do business. It's just a recommendation for your IT folks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that was actually at the county building, but
Okay.
we did offer to them that we would be willing to pay for an additional camera, because they let us use their facilities there at no cost.
Okay.
Because they used the city hall for like 25 or 30 years for their county commission. But yeah, that was at the county building, and they only had one camera in that room.
Yeah.
So, but we acknowledged that, and so we did offer that if they would be willing, we would help as a partner make that happen to increase the capabilities in that community room.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Bobby, screaming your name.
There's a hole on the Gamma in the middle of the road. Well, not in the middle, it's on the east side of the road. It goes down a foot or so on the Gamma at 10th Street. I believe that is because in the back of the property, next to there where the drain is, since that's a low part in a 10-acre lot, more than 10 acres actually, and that's where it comes together, is right there at that spot. You've turned it into a retention pond on somebody's property, and as I pointed out to code enforcement, all of the plants weren't there 5 years ago because they can only exist in standing water all year round. And if you just open up that drain, all of those plants in that guy's backyard would go away. You took property out of his property and you used it to build up the corner lot. And then you went out there and did that. But because of that, now the water flows underneath the road. It flows from there underneath that, and it weakens all the pipes, and the road isn't as stable. And if you're gonna put down a new road at some point, it'd be good if you'd fix that first so that you don't waste the money putting in a new road, and then you haven't fixed the problem of the water going underneath the road. Back at the time they were cementing it shut, they said that that doesn't happen, that water can't move from underneath the road, which is ridiculous and insulting. And if you're gonna treat people with that kind of disrespect, you're gonna get it back. So if you treat people with respect, I think you'd have a better time and it'd be easier.
If we are operating on private property, the owner should come to us with a survey and we could rectify it. But what's really hard for us up here, because it's not, is it your property that we're on?
You're putting
Because-
water underneath my house.
Okay, so.
And before that, there was a drain that was 2 feet in diameter, 4 feet below the height of the road, and it was a big giant swath so all the water would gather there after a hurricane, and then it would flush out the system just like you flush a toilet. But now there's a little tiny trickle of water, and there's a retention pond in the back of the property next to the corner lot. And I'm assuming they're doing it, that they want to split it into 2 lots and put a house there, instead of putting one house on the front, which was already raised up 3 feet above the height of the road, because that's where everybody piled their trash, and eventually they just, because there was a water source right there, and it was all saw palmetto field. So if that lights up, it burns at like 1,500 degrees, so it's gonna burn until it burns up all its fuel. So they needed to put it next to a water source. My point is, they didn't need to touch the back part of the property. They could have just built up the front part on 10th Street, and it would have been fine. But to try to split it into 2 lots, and they pay $26,000 assessed value, and they're trying to sell it for $350.
Try
So-
$475.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
maybe
that's why it's
what it
not gonna
was.
sell. Yeah, and what he's talking about is they built it up, so the water comes and it pools around this corner, and
There used to be a swath that went in between the corner lot and the property next to it, and that was deep, and that was 3 feet down. And it used to take the water, when all 4 drains were overflowing, it took the water in between the 2 properties, and it pooled in the back, and it moved in front of the drain, the low part of the drain. There's 3 main drains. One of them is 4 feet below the height of the road, one of them is 3.5 feet below the height of the road, and one is at 3. And those 3 spots pick up all the water for a larger than 10-acre area. You've got a valley coming in on the north side that's 1 acre, and you got a valley coming in on the south side, which is 2 acres. And they come together at that one spot, and all of the stuff from 9th Street drains back to 10th Street, and it goes around the block. Anyway.
One of the things I've researched is the idea of code enforcement monitoring or regulating adverse effects of private properties, people changing, adding dirt that then creates water flow issues somewhere else. And in a perfect world, because that was one thing that you and I discussed out here, was if someone brings in a bunch of dirt on private property and has adverse effects onto my property, how does the city do that, handle the regulation, or is it a civil matter? And so when I spoke to different code enforcement cities or cities departments of code enforcement, you have to have a clear before and a clear after to be able to say, you did something bad. And so most of the cities who do that have major problems, because then it turns into, you added 4 plants in your yard, and now I think I'm flooding because of your 4 plants. Now the city should get involved with taxpayer money to tell you to remove those crepe myrtles. And it never works out. It actually creates a more overbearing code enforcement.
And when you have a certain group of people who the people at code enforcement and all the other departments at the city know are the special people, they're the local groups and organization, and all the money, when it comes in, goes to them and their projects the way they want it, and then everybody else can't get a straight answer. When we come to the city and ask for a simple answer, we just get laughed at. So it's obvious that it's helping some people, like the property on East 9th Street. It's definitely helping somebody. And they got fixed in 2023, and it cost the owner $575, and they fixed it themselves. I don't know what they're gonna fix now, but they're already racked up over $70,000, so it's not gonna work. And those people know who's ever the special people don't have to worry about it. So unless you keep actual records and provide them to the public, we're gonna have this problem.
Yeah, I would concur with what you're saying, Alan, because one of the nuances is who put the water on the other piece of property first. It's like, okay, somebody built here. It's always the last person that's ultimately taking the brunt of everything. I don't know how to fix that.
I don't even. And adding more regulation and code enforcement and more confusion on how do we do before aerial drones or photos, and it's very problematic for us to regulate water flow because
the only time that really the city is gonna be involved in that on the front end is when you go to get a building permit.
Correct, yeah.
They're gonna tell you up front, you gotta have your silt fence, here's your grade that you gotta work at. And in any development, when that starts, civil engineers are the only people that I know that can tell water to go uphill and take a right, okay? And they'll always blame the developer or the builder for changing and creating the water problem. But the way that the city starts is, here's what you have to do. Then after that, they can't really get involved because once the grade's done here, it's gonna change all the way down. And we would be involved in people's lives all the way down to the bottom.
Well, and one thing that we've discussed previously too is, when something gets built, it's built for the specs, and we inspect it, and we're like, good. And then 20 years later, a retention pond might get overgrown. Someone's parking cars there.
Yeah.
Someone's filled it in, and we don't. And so there's a lot of states who are moving into stormwater inspections, which is just more regulations and more costs for us that we then pass down to the consumer. But it does potentially prevent adverse, because we inspect it once, we say you're good. 30 years later, it might be filled in with rock and brush and debris.
Or 30 years later, you come and build a detached building in the backyard and everybody else is built up and that one thing wrecks
Sure.
hey man. you
I
know.
had a conversation with somebody yesterday that a fence actually changed the typography of drainage, and we don't even require a fence permit. And so
Don't give them an idea.
it is, well, I mean,
Parker
yeah.
So how did, because of the post, the little hills probably?
Just
did it go all the way to
coming
the
in and
ground?
trying to get,
Trying to get it level.
get everything level, it
Yeah.
just changed the typography from that, and now it's created an adverse effect. And, I mean, people do have a standing on their own civilly to make that argument. If you've
Yeah.
devalued my property, if you've done those kind of things, you can definitely take action to try to recoup something through that mechanism. But the city trying to be the mediator, I do not. I don't, and there's nobody that's more anti-flooding than I am. And I just, it's not realistic to be
Right.
able to regulate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be involved in your azalea bushes made my yard flood. And that's where those cases end up going.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a question. I noticed there's poles going around the school areas. Are those poles are for the traffic light, the camera that they're going to put in on those school areas? Or y'all don't know?
I think so.
Yeah,
I did see some people post signage. I have seen some signage getting posted.
yeah.
I'd have to see specifically which one. I mean, it could be, but the
They
school,
own-
county also does a lot of stuff on behalf of the school board as well, so.
These signs
I'd have
are
to look
on
at 'em.
in the school zones.
And that's the red.
They on the
spot,
school zone. They on 11th Street.
Yeah.
They on Balboa. You got down 11th going to
Jenks.
Patterson, Jenks, all
Yes,
of
I know
that.
what you're talking
That's
about.
what that
They're
is. yeah.
setting up. Next, I wanted to, but I noticed that some of these, they're not putting any on Bay Avenue. Not one going on Bay Avenue. It's not one going on Redwood where Patterson is at, Patterson School at. But I can see those signs going up on Balboa. That school is not a big kind of school. It's a private school. But y'all got the cameras going up down Balboa. I can see it right, you got them going down 11th Street. But you don't have any going down Redwood. You don't have neither one on Bay Avenue.
They're going there, Mr. Henry. They're going to every school. They're gonna be at every school in Panama City. They'll be there. What are the cameras?
Flock.
What, Flock?
For license plate readers, LPRs
Yeah.
is what we refer to them.
And are those your county putting that in?
There's some in the city and then there's some in the county.
Are we paying for them?
Yes.
Okay.
Some, yeah.
Huh?
Some of them, yes.
Some we pay for, yes.
Some we pay.
And some of them Bay County pays for.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're, do they record or are they just readers?
They're just
How would
readers.
you,
Well,
not
because
record?
like the one at the county office, the two-story, have you ever been in that room that's?
That is not those.
That is not
That's
those.
not that.
That's not those,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
These are identifying license plate readers.
Right.
So if somebody flees or somebody does something, that PD knows where they're
Right.
at.
Oh, I got
Bay
one,
County.
2 weeks after I filed
Yeah.
to run. I get pulled over and the guy was like this. I was like, how'd you know? He said, I saw you coming, because I
Yeah.
knew you were coming because your license plate, it got me on a reader.
I will add that, there's been some things around social media that are very incorrect. Those things
You
are
don't
not.
say,
Yeah.
social media incorrect?
They're not subject to public records. You can't use those, like, hey, I want to know where my ex went.
Right.
All of that's false. And in order to what they call kind of hot list, that's a very heavy lift. It's got to be specifically focused on you know, like a warrant or something like that. But I will say this, it's one of the ways we are able to catch those guys that vandalized the MLK Rec Center. We caught them on one of those. So, and then remember that really horrific incident where we had the homicide at Hotel Indigo? That assisted us to find the suspect and catch up with him. So, yeah, but there's a lot of misinformation out there, and you know, our police department would be happy to provide a briefing on that if need be. So.
Oh, no, I just, yeah,
Yeah,
I
there's
couldn't
been-
remember the name of it.
There's been quite a bit of stuff that,
Yeah.
I mean, there was a robbery at a gas station that they were able to solve within 2 minutes. There was a lady that was apprehended off the side of the road, and they found her very, very quickly. I don't remember the exact number.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's a really
You're
neat
being
tool.
filmed everywhere you go.
Yeah, Pensacola puts out top 10 worst offenders of running red lights. It's one of the, and they publicly put them out there, and everyone goes, "Oh my gosh!" Because you see people running red lights clearly. Because you think it's all like just innocent behavior. They're like, "Oh, that guy, these people clear top 10 every month," and people are like, "Oh snap!"
Black Tesla.
Yeah, no, Elon does not run
With
red
smoke
lights.
windows.
Elon does not run red lights. He obeys all the laws. Yes, sir. Give it to us.
If you make a material improvement to your property, I believe you are required to get a permit for a fence. You're also required to put the fancy side out, facing the other people. I don't know what the rules are about pools, but I think that some of the people who are working across the street on the projects that you're doing are putting in fence posts, and you have to provide a survey when you do that, and it's a material improvement to the property, which means higher property taxes. So if you're paying property taxes appropriate to where your property is, if you just pile up a bunch of bricks like I have, it could be moved. But you're not allowed to just put up a fence, because I could have dug a hole and put in some cement if I wanted to, if it's not all along the property line. But it's a physical improvement to my property, so I'd have to get a permit and pay more in taxes.
No, sir, you don't.
And I have to put the fancy side on the outside and not on the inside.
That they'd like you to do, but it's not a permittable requirement.
Yeah,
As long
it's
as
not.
So
a
if you-
survey, a survey's done for you, and it's better for you to have that while you're gonna put your fence up, so that you won't have a fence, if you have a neighbor, you won't, potential to have a fence issue or an encroachment issue later on, so you wanna try to put that in. That's why you have the survey. The city doesn't
Code
require
enforcement
that.
was pretty
You don't
clear.
have to
I'm
do
not
that.
doing unpermitted work, and they made it very clear, if you do this, if you plant that hole and put the cement in, you've done unpermitted work and you will get a ticket. So that's what they tell me.
Well,
But then again, you know, they don't
I'd like
keep
to
by.
talk to him, because that's not what the city requires. I mean, I put a lot of fences in.
Yeah,
It's
some
not-
cities do require it.
Yeah.
And it
Now,
costs money to do
Now, the
it.
fence across, what you're talking about across the street where they're putting the swimming pool in, the law says you have to have a fence around your swimming pool. So it
they
can
have
either
it
be the
for a
fence
couple
around the
months
pool
now.
or around the property, but it has to be fenced in order for insurance purposes. That's
Well,
not a
this-
city requirement, that's an insurance requirement.
Okay, and I guess they don't have insurance.
Huh?
Attractive nuisance.
Yeah, well, but somebody fall in and die,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember years
Never
ago.
mind, they're trespassing on your property, but go ahead.
Years and years ago, we didn't live downtown. I called. I was like, I wanted to put a shed in my backyard, and I was like, do I have to have a permit for a shed? And they were like, is it temporary? I was like, define temporary.
Yeah.
Because isn't everything kind of temporary? And so we had that sort of battle of what is actually permittable, like what do you have to have a permit for?
Am I
And
gonna
so,
die in this house? No, that means I'm temporary. Yeah.
We're all temporary,
That's
actually.
right.
So there are some cities that do require permits and development orders for, but it costs money to do that, and that cost gets passed down to the taxpayer and pulled from different departments, all those sort of things. Anyone else want to speak?
I found the file, but I can't load it. Remember when we worked on the NFL flag, like 4 times until we stood on our head? I drew that. Remember, I think Rob Rosner did it for me, for the soccer fields with NFL flag.
Yeah, which I passed that stuff on. I think I gave Virgil a copy of that NFL flag football stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I can find on my other hard drive the budget that we had for that. I think I have deeper documents, and they were in town the first day I got back, and that money is still available.
Let's go for it.
We went to lunch. Maybe 5th time's a charm.
Oh, here we go.
Bobby Beard, the Dive in St. Andrews. I just want to say I'm opposed to any new ordinances against late night establishments. As you guys know, Granger put that forth about a week ago, I guess. I wasn't prepared to talk today with Mardi Gras going on and all that, but I just want to say I'm 100% opposed to any new ordinances without at least coming together and just like talk and look at data, instead of just opposing something without any data, just from the hip. I think that's wrong. I would like to see more communication and actual collaboration and not just writing ordinances. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone want to discuss late night ordinances? When I got that email, I was fairly upset that we hadn't had, it felt like in the background was there was a 10-year-old ordinance that got distributed to elected officials. Looked like it was the time was spent 10 years ago. I assumed it was a bunch of staff time now and was not very excited about that, of like, why are we working on ordinances that we haven't discussed? But I was explained to it was an ordinance from 10 years ago that was really supposed to be a discussion item. And it was kind of rolled out with not very good communication, and really should have been discussed in a workshop kind of earlier.
Yeah, so I requested that ordinance to be dusted off and brought back. It's a draft ordinance. And I wanted to go ahead and get it on the march so that I could, not so that we'd vote on the ordinance, but so that I could talk about it and say, hey, let's have a workshop after spring break, April, May timeframe. I was thinking more May. And I guess some people out there feel or think that it's that it was a kind of something we were trying to sneak in or do something nefariously. In my mind, it was always a discussion point and absolutely bringing in the establishment owners into that discussion like we've done before, and talk about how we can solve some of the problems that Panama City faces. It's a discussion. I think it's one that we need to have, but I think we need to have it in May.
What's the fire? What's the problem that you said?
So there's kind of two issues. There's one is the Panama City Police Department is spending an extra amount of overtime during specific months, during specific times for these types of establishments. It's not all the establishments.
That's the issue.
But the ordinance is written for all establishments. And the other side to this is that police officers are required, similarly to pilots and semi-truck drivers, to have 8 hours of downtime. So they're required to have that, right? And so I don't know if you've ever tried to run a 24-hour work center or run anything like this. When you get into shift work, there's a lot of issues that can arise that can throw your entire schedule off kilter. During this time period, specifically during spring break, PD has to have multiple shifts at the same time. And one person being sick or one person hitting their 8-hour requirement can cause all that stuff to shift. And so what you wind up with is you wind up with an officer who maybe was supposed to be on shift for 12 hours is now on shift for maybe 13 or 14 hours because something happened during their shift that they now have to take care of and see it fully through. That usually is an arrest, because you can't just be like, oh, clock's, time's up, I'm not going to the jail, hey bud, get out, I'm going home. You can't do that. You got to see them all the way through that process, right? And so there is a bit of a concern there as well. So it's financial, and then it's also, hey, looking at the situation, I feel like the policies that this board has currently is contributing to putting our officers up sometimes up in a position of failure or a position to fail. And I don't really like that. That's coming from my military background of, you take care of the troops, but you also want to make sure that you're not putting them in a position over and over and over again where somebody's worn out. So.
But that explanation to me seems like you're identifying a policing problem, not that they have a problem, but you're trying to fix an issue monetarily, overtime. If we're trying to help on the budget, there's enough wasteful spending, we can go find that and take that out and not mess with that and keep the overtime there, the money. But the way that I read it is if that's what we're trying to do, we're doing that on the backs of a business that there's really not an issue with. If they don't have an issue with the overtime, that's not the problem of the bar owner. That's the city's problem. But you're hurting the business by trying to take the overtime away, in my opinion.
But similarly to like we heard today, where a citizen has a neighbor who their yard is overgrown, and there's no action being taken there by the owner of that property, but it's causing a problem in that neighborhood, right? That is a problem. We are going to charge that landowner to fix that problem. And so out of the discussion, that small amount of discussion that we've had so far on this, I think one of the best things that we can look at moving forward is allowing, because these establishment owners have never been allowed to hire off-duty police officers.
They used to. Flipped it over.
Recently, since I've been in office,
Yeah.
they have not been allowed to hire off-duty police officers. And so I think that's actually a really good idea moving forward in changing the ordinance to allow them to do so. So the idea there is that then they would be contributing to the financial aspect of it, because they would be hiring the off-duty police officers.
I mean,
So-
you're the one getting hit.
Oh, yeah.
Hard.
Yeah, like, so, I mean,
I
there's
get
nobody
one.
up here that gets more effective at it. I do wanna workshop this, because
Yeah.
I think there's some of you guys that are new to the board too, that are new to the conversation. Make sure you meet with Chief. I have not gotten to meet with Chief since this got circulated
Me either.
either, to know if there was any. But the root of this is, one, the state of Florida allows you to stay open until 12. It
Right.
is only through an ordinance by a local government that you can stay open later than that.
Right.
So the state only allows till 12 a.m. That's across the board. So then you look at what happened that started creating some tension. Well, what happened is the city historically had synced their hours based upon Bay County, and it was unified across the city. There was a point in which that element dissolved sometime in the mid-teens, 2000s,
When they were
something like
killing
that.
spring break.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they started changing the hours. Up until that point, we were defined as the same. Well, go back to post 2020, and there were some activities that happened. Beach locks down. What happened during that, and I can remember it vividly because I was in office when it happened. Thousands of people came across the bridge, and they swarmed some facilities that were right across this side of the bridge. So there was helicopters, there was SWAT, there was everything that was called in. So then that led us to come back and saying, okay, hey, if we don't match up, there is this transitionary period. You had some owners, one of them being here today, that voluntarily complied and said, hey, look, guys, we're gonna be good partners, and we're gonna sync up regardless of what you guys do legally. And then you had others that just basically said, we're gonna do what we wanna do. And so we went through several years of that, on having issues. Last year was the first year since I've been in office that I do not recall, I did not get some calls of some major, massive instances.
Neither did I.
So what I'm looking forward to in this discussion is now that there's not this somebody pulling out an AK-47, thousands of people swarming, and we've got SWAT, and I've got residents calling me from, I've got helicopters flying over my head.
At 4 o'clock in the morning.
At 4 o'clock in the morning. Now that we don't have that, let's have a regional logical conversation on what ours really need to be, and look around the state and what happens. And so, and there are a variety of ways that communities handle late night operations in a way that is respectful to police and the business owners. So this is not a negative conversation as long as it's handled in a way that's actually, I agree, it should be data driven, it should be those things. For the most part, most are being great in voluntary compliance, even when there's not a law that's requiring that. But then there are others that require laws and guardrails before they respond, and that is unfortunate. But from my perspective, I've got to do what's right by the citizens that I represent, and we do have some that are in close proximity to neighborhoods, and that is where most of the issues exist. In other areas, there's not an issue at all. So it's It's just trying to find a way to navigate that fairly that doesn't ultimately impact businesses that are being, you know, good stewards of the community that they're in, and the others that, you know, I don't know that they care.
But
So,
the other piece to this is just what he just hit on. As the ordinance is written right now, they're all one kind,
Yep.
it's an umbrella policy for all of them. So we can have some of the business owners like Bobby here, who has worked with PD and worked with us. And, when a bad actor comes in, the policy applies across the board. And I think there's some ways to change that.
let me give a
What if
good,
we
let me
flipped
give
it and we
it,
tore that ordinance
Yeah.
up and said, let's have guys like that tell us
yeah,
how to
so,
write it,
so I
instead
think,
of us tell them.
I think here's what I
know?
think everyone can agree to that's reasonable. If you oversell your club by 100%, and you force the fire marshal to have to go into a club and shut you down and put themselves in danger, and our PD to have to be the bad guy in that scenario, like, that is not a scenario that you should be able to continue to operate at the same level of somebody that doesn't do that.
I agree.
Like, and what I have watched over the years is I have watched some that understand that, and I have watched others that don't. And, you
Or
know.
don't care.
Or
They understand it,
or
Right.
just don't care.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and what I can tell you, the tension that creates in the community is a tension of, wow, I just don't want you here at all. So, and that leads to a whole nother dynamic, so,
But when you legislate for one and hurt all,
yeah.
that's the problem.
And it could be a
yeah.
rules that
And we
just
don't wanna
says,
do
hey,
that.
if this happens, sorry, you don't get to do this anymore.
Right.
And that's the end of it. And that may be the case.
We
And there
do
are
not-
municipalities that do that.
In my conversation with Bobby, it's like, look, we got the cops on our, they're on our phone, we're talking to them, they're calling us, we're working with them. That's the type of collaboration that we need, and something, and when I
I
read
wish
that, I was
everybody
like,
would do
whoa,
that.
wait a minute, because when I see underline, that's all brand new, that means there's something coming. And so I start reading it, and you can tell that it was an old with a new. A lot of that, to your point, that's as archaic as it can be. And if we're gonna do this, and one thing this job has taught me is how much I don't like government being in people's lives. And we do it all the time, and I try not to. And let's start over from the point of, what's our problem today? One,
Yeah.
do we have one? Okay, and I'm not sure that we do. And two, if we're gonna try to prevent against a problem, let's not make an ordinance so tedious that it's hard to operate inside that. It can be. You're right. If I got to bring the fire marshal and the cops,
Yeah.
I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%. And I
but-
think anybody reasonable would agree with that.
Right, and I don't
So-
think any bar owner would disagree with that. Think
Most.
about Judd. If he wasn't open, we wouldn't have Ferrucci's in most of that block because that guy's sitting outside at 3:30 in the morning. So there's some positive to being open late. I don't know how they do it, and it would hurt me 3 days. I'd be in bed for 3 days if I was out that late, But it's something that I think we can work with. I think this is the place where you bring that conversation up instead of an email coming to us with that and then go hair on fire.
Yeah, it's.
And I don't know how that happened. I don't know what.
Yeah, it's how do we create discussion points without creating angst? And I read it and saw it and was like, this is happening immediately, and we always are trying to gather feedback from people.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we have discussion points where we don't create angst and confusion? We saw with Truesdale and and public discourse is going to be a little frictiony at times, and maybe that's normal, but we don't want to create hysteria when there's just early discussion. And so I don't know, if that email had been sent that said, here's a draft ordinance from 10 years ago. We're going to be discussing internally some of these discussion points, kind of framed it a little bit better. That might would have helped create less
Why'd
hysteria.
you look at me?
Well, I don't know. That's your staff.
I mean,
It's your
look,
staff.
No, it wasn't.
But to your
Okay,
point,
Mr. Zimmerman's staff.
but there, to your point, you took that and you said you sent it
Yeah.
over there, so that may have stopped. Or there's a thought. What do we
Yeah,
not send that?
one
right
of the
now?
hardest parts of this job is this constant well, I didn't know that was happening. You're like,
Right.
I didn't.
Neither did we.
And I look at every agenda. I'm like, who needs to know about these things that we're going to be? So I'm constantly going.
Yeah.
Who needs to know about this? Okay, this person, and then this person wants to know about this thing. And so gathering feedback is one of the hardest because there's no definitive list of
And I'm glad we get it on Wednesday. We get it
Yeah.
earlier because it does give us, that day or day and a half to.
Yeah, I don't really have a way to solve for public discourse. I don't really know.
Well,
How do
As
we
long
introduce
as
ideas?
the business owners are in from the beginning of this conversation, I think, and we give them the floor to teach us. I mean, they're the ones that are there doing it.
Well, and then,
And
you know,
let them help us.
And
And
I
then
would
from-
say same thing with PD as well, Robbie.
That's what I'm
So,
saying,
yeah,
PD,
so
yeah, both of them.
it's
Those are
gotta
the ones
be
that we need to learn from.
both. So,
And it's such a, because, you know, we don't talk about these items unless we're up here. And so, like, even when I received the email, I was like, well, I sent it to Bobby, Chris Carr, and Judd. I'm like, please read this. Assuming that you guys might have been talking to them about the thing that I'm like,
Yeah, I mean,
so
and-
it's
and-
always like, who's talking to who? We don't know.
And
You know.
it is a partnership. You know, we talk about business owners, that's one aspect. You talk about PD, that's another aspect. And the residents are another aspect. And some affect more residents than others. And that's a nuanced approach that
Yeah.
you've just gotta take, because at the end of the day, none of us are here without residents.
That's right.
And also, government doesn't run, and all of us would pay a lot more in taxes if it wasn't for the businesses.
That's right.
And
That's
none of us are safe if we don't have PD.
So we all need each other.
So we all need each other.
You said you wanted to get an education on this, and so what I'm gonna suggest to you is to go, both of you, to go on a ride-along during spring
Deputize
break.
us. Deputize
On a
us.
Friday
Yes.
night.
That's
and
not
a Saturday
happening, Mr.
morning.
Mayor.
Yeah.
I did it last year, I plan to do it again this year.
I
Go
would
do that.
strongly encourage that.
And go see the issues that PD's dealing with.
Because what you'll see is you'll see the issues of, you know, we see this on a national stage all the time. Like, officers are put into situations that are never, if you're calling an officer, there's already an issue. And so there's already tension.
Right.
And so now exacerbate that with a large group of people, and you can feel the tension that exists. And there are some places they won't even take us because it's not safe enough to take us
Amen.
sometimes.
We
So,
all get up and go to
Maybe
work
you.
every day. We're
They took
probably
me.
coming home. And those guys go to work with
Military
the
guy.
ability
Yeah.
not to come home
Yeah.
today, and that's a big deal, man.
yeah, and
100%
but
respect
here's what I say. What's great about this conversation is
Yeah.
I'm not coming off of a year than which I've got, you know, this and this and this and
Right.
this happened. So there's no red herring that's in this conversation. So this is a good time
Right.
at post spring break for us to have a good conversation
Yeah.
of what are the parameters moving forward, and what ultimately I want to see is if you do something stupid and you just put the finger to our police department, that's a whole nother scenario than just trying to operate a business.
10-4.
Okay, you understand what I'm saying? That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that there's alignment even with the business owners in that.
We are over, but yes, sir, give it to us.
I'll make it quick.
Yes, sir.
It is interesting to do a ride-along during spring break. As a member of the media, I've done that. Just be prepared for any given day. To solve an issue that Commissioner Street brought up, and an issue that we've dealt with for long, is the sports. There's nothing to do. I addressed those nearly 40 acres that I understand is earmarked for some housing or something like that. Can we look at 15805-00000 and the other parcel that's adjacent to that the city owns? Let's do a little bit of both. We don't have a sports complex. That's almost 16 city blocks. If we look at the NFL project, go to the Major League Baseball, go to all those other people there, and it's close enough to Tyndall that they can bring the armed games here because it's in that location. So if you've got 16 city blocks that the city already owns, and we've heard it, sports is the issue.
Where's that?
Let's resolve
It's
that.
on a watershed near,
It's,
Transfer, East Avenue?
Sherman.
It's in between Sherman and 11.
Yeah.
It's almost 40 acres, 16 city
yeah,
blocks.
okay.
That would solve a lot of our issues and bring some jobs and fix some things. I mean, it's a yeoman's task, but I was a yeoman for 20 years in the Navy. So,
Yes, sir, thank you.
thank you.
Before we wrap up, Erica, we're gonna keep going. You came late, buddy. You came, next time you show up at 8 o'clock, you're gonna talk about 10 minutes late. This is the last one, and then Brandon comes to, go ahead, Brandon.
One more. Brandon Henderson Jansenius. So I want to go back to the bar thing real quick because it's blown way out of proportion. I don't want to address the discussions yet that will come from the workshop because I trust that there will be workshops coming from this. Bar owners and the police department have a responsibility to discuss and review this often and be okay with reviewing that often, right? If that's once a year, that's every 2 years, like that should be a partnership between them and the police department. That shouldn't be commissioner-led. So I apologize that you guys feel like it's your responsibility to lead that when that's really a department and a staff-led initiative. I do want to address the attack on Brian Granger's integrity. Like, I have seen you for years sit there, and I have never seen you want to cast blame to bar owners. I won't stop at just what it looks like, because I think there was a breakdown in the process on how this communication got out, and it wasn't ill intent. Your intent was to slow the process down and make sure decisions are being made transparently and collaboratively. Like, that's been your intent the entire time. So I'm sorry that your character's been in question because of this. I don't think that was the intent from the public either. From what it looked like on the public side, the draft ordinance looked like it was final. It should never look like it was final. So I hope that the conversation can shift towards how we can workshop this and get past this. The messaging itself just wasn't clear. So something I want to say, the silence from the city manager on this, Jonathan, this is to you. Like, your staff being silent and not having his back when that went out, that was a breakdown in the process because it got out. We should have got ahead of, hold on, let's stop, let's pump the brakes, and let's figure out this was not the intent. This wasn't the communication.
Not his staff that did that. Yeah.
Okay, however it got out.
Nevin's staff.
Right, and it was, the purpose of it is that we just have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
But the ordinance, what I saw, because listen, I got it that night, I got it in a text message, and like, have you seen this? I got the same text message that these guys got.
There's a lot of wild stuff in it.
Holy crap, it looked terrible. It looked like y'all were up to some no good stuff, and then you got the blunt end of it because you just happened to ask some qualifying questions,
Yeah.
right? So I apologize for the attack on your integrity on behalf of the people's side.
Well, thank you.
I will do my part and make sure we solidify that, but we need to do our part because nobody's the bad guy here. It's not me versus you, it's me and you versus the problem. And the problem is these guys' responsibility to fix, if there is a problem, right? So thank you.
I absolutely agree with you. I will disagree with one aspect of that, and that is that in looking at this entire issue, one of the biggest problems is that the policy which this board sets is an umbrella policy, and that's actually causing a lot of the rub in this. When we're, as we've already discussed, we have bar owners that are very happy and willing to work with us, and some that are not. And then when the problems arise, and there's always going to be some kind of problem in any given situation, but it's how do we handle those problems, and the ones that don't handle them well with us or don't report them or don't want us to even get involved with it, that's where we need to be able to address that. And right now the policy is just an umbrella policy for everybody. So that's what I'm trying to bring up so that we can talk about it to change it. And the PD can't change it on their own. So.
Awesome. One last thing before we wrap. Erica, you brought four young men here today learning about local government. Can they either stand up and tell them their name, school, and grade, or can you introduce them? Sure. Yeah.
Boys, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
Go Hornets.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Nice.
Way to go.
Nice to meet you.
My name is Raymond, and I go to James Middle School, sixth grade.
Go
All
Hornets.
right.
My name is Jerome. I go to Dance. I do photography for Glenmore Rally.
Very cool.
Way to go.
Thanks for coming today. Learn about local government. Yes, sir. You got a future mayor or commissioner in that group.
Coach, over here, make a comment.
Yeah. No, I did not. Thank you, everyone, for coming today, and appreciate all the commentary. Meeting adjourned.